Hello and welcome, I'm Catherine Mather. Like many of you, I loved to play and dress up my dolls as a child. But in the late 1980s, as an adult, I found antique reproduction porcelain dolls. At the time, I worked as a costumer at a company that created theatre and fancy dress outfits. It was fun to recreate these small outfits for my dolls. Luckily for me, my horizons were expanded when I found that an Australian miniature artist was teaching sculpting classes. After attending a class, I went straight home, sat at my kitchen table and began to sculpt a doll. I then learnt the art of mould making from a book from the library. They were pretty primitive moulds, but I managed to complete this first doll in 1988. From the beginning, I was always interested in posing the dolls in a realistic way. So for my second doll, I coaxed my young next-door neighbour to come and sit for me on my kitchen table so I could use her as a model. And not having any formal training in art, having a visual reference really helped. And to this day, I still like to use a life model or life model photos to sculpt with while making my dolls. In hindsight, this was the start of my signature style that weaved its way through all of my work. Through the 1990s, I worked on a mix of dolls, some all porcelain and quite large, and others porcelain with cloth bodies that made them more posable. As I became more skilled at sculpting, I ventured into different size figures. Until in 2000, I finally settled on what is formally called a cabinet-sized doll. These were approximately a quarter life size, around the 18-inch mark. And with this new size came the ability to create more complex figure posing that had been very restricted in the larger scale dolls that needed a more complex firing preparation to avoid warping when fired in the kiln. Having come to dolls with a formal training in costume design and drafting, millinery and the history of costume, this scale of doll has allowed me to develop and expand my skills in a way I could not have thought of when I sat down to create my first doll. Some of the more challenging aspects of doll making have been to find furniture and accessories in the right scale. As an example, I moved from previously making simple wooden chairs to this more elaborate chair, and in the process expanded my knowledge by learning the techniques for casting resin. My curiosity of how things are made and how they can be made to a smaller scale than life has contributed to my enjoyment and longevity in creating dolls. I've always worked with porcelain, whether it's for slip casting the limited edition dolls or for sculpting. To achieve the final figure, I work using a block or slab of clay, building the doll shape using a photo as a reference. You may have seen in some of the individual clay sculpting photos small wooden pegs that hold the cut limbs in place. These divisions of the limbs and head help to make it possible to mould the doll using pottery plaster. Once the dolls are cast in liquid clay and then the excess removed, the pieces are then dried, cleaned and fired, ready to be reassembled, allowing me to make a small edition of each doll figure. Although each is cast from the same set of moulds, small subtle differences that make each doll different and unique are created in the final dry carving in the last stages of preparation, along with the multiple layers of fired colour pigments used to add the final detail and eye expressions, helping to personalise each face. One of the highlights of a new doll figure is creating a costume or an ensemble that sets the mood or story of that doll. I jump between a social history of women's clothing and underpinnings to stepping behind the veil into fairyland, but think I'm best known for my Art Nouveau and Art Deco ladies. As these scantily dressed era ladies give me a greater opportunity to show the female figure in a more sensual way, showing more of the full body sculpture that I love to create. Each of the porcelain doll sculpts is set to an edition size, but within that doll edition, I choose a small number of dolls to dress in one-of-a-kind dresses and settings, and are often made from antique fabrics that can't be reproduced. The edition dolls fabrics are made from modern fabrics produced using age-old techniques. And as I have a tendency to want to hand dye many of my fabrics, I purchase these lengths in white or natural, giving me the ability to colour it to any shade. I'm a great advocate on using new technology and equipment to help style my dolls' costumes, often producing designs or patterns in Photoshop and then digitally printing these on my home inkjet printer. Having also added a digital cutting machine to my equipment list has sped up some time-consuming, tedious tasks, especially display stands and hat block forms. I'm excited by what new technology brings to dolls and doll making. I'm on the path of embracing digital 3D printing as well, when I get my head around how to use the programming. At the moment, I don't feel anything can quite replace the happiness immersing your hands in Mother Nature's natural sculpting material, clay. But time will tell. Hope you've enjoyed my doll journey, encompassing 36 years of creating, and that you may have found some small snippet of information to help you along your journey too. Thank you, and I hope our paths do cross sometime in the future.